Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Javon Keys. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Daryl Vaz, opened the discussions at the G7 Environment Ministers meeting in Canada today. Minister Vaz, who has responsibility for the environment, declared that it's time for action. Jamila Maitland reports.
Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is here. The time for talking is long past. We need definitive action and now.
Minister Vaz is calling on Environment Minister to act now and reduce the impact of climate change later. He points out that Jamaica is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world.
Jamaica is ranked as one of the most at-risk countries in the world, with approximately 56% of the island's economic assets and 70% of the population located within the coastal zone. There have been 14 hurricanes and 12 tropical storms in the last decade, which have affected life and livelihoods in coastal and inland areas in Jamaica.
Minister Vaz says $16 billion is needed each year to create a buffer against disasters. He says whilst Jamaica continues to mitigate and adapt to climate change, access to funding limits the country's resilience.
A country's financial resilience to natural disasters is dependent on its ability to leverage and manage internal and external resources to finance post-disaster needs. Disaster risk management strategies include risk reduction by investment in mitigation and adaptation, but it also must include a series of alternative instruments for loss-making risk financing instruments.
He wants disaster funding easily available to small island developing countries like Jamaica in order to effectively withstand the harsh effects of climate change.
This investment in resilience should be targeted for SIDS, including Caribbean states, who have proven to be the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. If only traditional approaches are applied, these funds will mainly go to hard infrastructure such as seawalls and breakwaters, unless international policymakers and national governments actively identify areas where conservation and restoration of natural habitats represent a feasible solution for risk reduction and resilience.
For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke says the government is developing a public financial management for disaster risk policy to be approved by Cabinet. The policy is expected to help manage and secure funding to protect the country in the event of natural disasters. Dr. Clarke, who was speaking at the Jamaica Money Market Brokers JMMB Annual Economic Forum this morning, says disaster risk management is crucial for sustainable financial economic independence that Jamaica seeks. Here again is Jamila Maitland.
The finance minister says the government intends to craft a financial management disaster risk policy. The minister notes that for the country to become truly financially independent, all vulnerabilities must be addressed.
Economic independence, economic resilience requires an institutional response. Not the knee-jerk response of the past of when it happens, then we try to move budgetary expenditure. When it happens, we try to raise revenue. When it happens, that's when we go out and try to make fixes. We're going to take an institutional approach. And for this reason, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service is developing a public financial management for disaster risk policy and framework that we will take to Cabinet for approval, and upon approval, lay in Parliament.
He explained that whilst the country seeks to achieve economic resilience, natural disasters are often overlooked because of their spontaneity. But the finance minister says they threaten economic growth.
Economic resilience will require that in addition to monetary strength and fiscal discipline that are institutionalized, that we also have an institutional response to natural disaster, the financial risk posed by natural disaster.
Dr. Clarke is calling on the private sector to develop more financial products focused on natural disasters that will help stabilize the economy after the natural disaster.
There are catastrophe bonds on which you pay premium, and in the event of a natural disaster that hit certain parametric parameters, money is available. Clearly, all these cost, and there's no magic one that we can insulate us 100% for all risks, for all time. But we must start. We must begin. And as our fiscal space opens up, we can take on more and more protection.
For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
Over the next 8 weeks, the National Works Agency will be rolling out a drain cleaning exercise under the Disaster Mitigation Program. The exercise is worth some $96 million, and it is to take place in all parishes as a part of the Hurricane Season Preparedness Program. NWA's Communications Manager Stephen Shaw says the program will target critical drains and gullies previously brought to the company's attention. He says they will focus on drains in flood-prone areas. Mr. Shaw says consultations have taken place with elected representatives in each parish so as to involve a wide cross-section of persons in the discussions on which drains should be cleaned. He says the budget cannot satisfy the demands placed on the agency by some communities. And when we come back, the mining minister and his opposition counterpart are at it again, more sparring in Parliament over the New Day deal. This and more after the break. Welcome back. Mining Minister Robert Montague tried to clarify details of the profit-sharing agreement between the government and New Day Data Holdings in Parliament yesterday. The profit-sharing agreement was signed over 2 weeks ago, but was staunchly criticized by opposition spokesman on mining Philip Paulwell on Tuesday. Sashana Small has more.
The opposition spokesman on mining had criticized the new agreement, calling it bad for Jamaica's bauxite industry. He had a series of questions for the minister about the deal, and yesterday Minister Montague tried to answer them.
The member asked how much has been earned since 2016. $10.7 million has been earned from the new arrangement since 2016. He further asked, Mr. Speaker, what is the duration of the agreement? The agreement started from the letter of intent was signed in 2016. It is for 25 years. But because the innovation agreement was only recently signed, we now have some 23 years and 2 months left on the arrangement.
The minister says the agreement will be reviewed in 2019. He also tried to clarify how the government will make money from the agreement.
And what we went further to do, Mr. Speaker, is to add the 17.33%, so that if they made no profit, we would get the $1.50, as was the agreement before Naranda went bankrupt. And if they made a profit, we would also share in that profit, the 17.33%.
But was the opposition spokesman satisfied with these answers?
A more germane point has to do with the information the minister just gave, because yesterday, when I gave the assessment as to how much has been earned in the 2-year period, I gave a higher figure for the company than what the minister done, yes, for the period. The minister, I had given 13.25 million, but you're now saying it was in fact 10.75. So instead of the difference being 25 million US dollars, is actually 27 million US dollars. So it's a lot more money that we would have collected if the bauxite levy was in place.
And Mr. Paulwell's questions weren't done. He wanted to know if Windalco is still paying bauxite tax, despite policy changes made by the previous finance minister to remove the tax on bauxite as part of a tax overhaul for extractive industries.
The Minister of Finance last year announced that he was granting a waiver for 5 years to Windalco. unless you're saying that he has cancelled that grant and is now charging the company the full waiver, the full levy. I'd like you to answer that.
But it seems you'll have to wait for the next sitting to get that answer.
There's some amount of controversy, but the information I have is that the concession came to an end at the end of March, and the full levy is due from Windalco. But you are speaking with such confidence that my mother would warn me to say make haste slowly. So I will go back and double check because I don't want to mislead you.
For BATV News, I'm Shoshana Small.
8 Jamaican entrepreneurs are participating in this year's Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative YLAI in Detroit, Michigan. The YLAI Fellowship Professional Program brings 250 business and social entrepreneurs from 36 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to the United States. This gathering facilitates collaboration with counterparts in business and commerce throughout the Americas. Through the exchange, fellows are expected to advance their entrepreneurial ventures and build leadership skills to contribute to social and economic development. The participants will also be involved in a 4-week fellowship throughout the United States. The program will end in October with a forum in Washington, D.C. Participants are expected to return to their ventures with new skills, resources, ongoing support from U.S. counterparts, and an improved business network. The organizers of Canex Jamaica Business Conference and Expo are partnering with Colombia's Expo Meadoweed Conference. The collaboration will see both organizations working together to develop the cannabis industry through their conferences and networks. It's also expected to foster more commercial endeavors between Jamaica and Colombia. The two conferences are the largest of their kind in their regions. The third annual Canex Conference will take place next week in Montego Bay, while Expo Meadoweed will take place in November in Medellin, Colombia. A statement from Canex says Colombia and Jamaica represent a very important market in the industry, and it says that the Expo will provide a springboard for the growing industry. JMMB Express Finance is the newest subsidiary of the JMMB Group's operations in Trinidad and Tobago. The company was launched last week. Through the new subsidiary, JMMB Group says it can now provide consumers with financing solutions based on financial inclusion, a fair price, and a quick response. At the launch of the event, CEO of JMMB Express Finance, Elson James, says the business's key differentiating factor is its focus on improving the financial circumstances of clients. The subsidiary hopes to also deliver competitive unsecured loans and break the cycle of debt that clients experience. Through JMMB Express Finance, customers can access loans of up to 40,000 TNT dollars with a repayment period of up to 3 years. And when we come back, Trinidad's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is in Guyana. This and more in regional and international news up next. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international news. Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana are partnering in the field of energy. Trinidad is CARICOM's largest oil producer and exporter, while Guyana recently discovered oil in commercial quantities. Here's more.
It was a well-anticipated and highly publicized visit. The Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, along with his Ministers of Energy, Sports and Youth Affairs, Planning and Development, and Agriculture and Fisheries arrived in Guyana on Wednesday. The visiting delegation met with President David Granger and a team of ministers. That engagement lasted for a few hours. Then it was time for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding on energy sector cooperation between the two leaders. President Granger said Guyana has always been a friend of Trinidad and Tobago, and the signing of the MOU takes that friendship further.
But there are other areas of interest, and we extended our conversations to deal with agriculture, to deal with sport, to deal with, and youth, to deal with security, to deal with cooperation in other fields.
President David Granger noted that there is a lot that Guyana can learn from Trinidad and Tobago. For the Caribbean community, the president added that it is a significant step which will benefit the region. The Trinidadian Prime Minister opened his remarks by saying that Wednesday, September 19, represented a documentation of the commitment between the two states to do more in neighborly relations.
With respect to the generation of economic and other kinds of activities for the benefit of the people of Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago. We anticipate that the role of the governments in laying the groundwork and providing the encouragement for our private sectors to seize opportunities which are available to both countries at this time could only be a good thing for the people of Trinidad and Tobago and for the people of Guyana.
Prime Minister Rowley is hopeful that in the coming months people can see more action in the area of cooperation and development.
Crafting of this MOU, which we worked on for the last year, to the framework agreement, which we have identified should come into force on the 1st of October, where specific teams of people from both countries will be working on specific projects and problems to bring about the action that we expect to either initiate, ameliorate, or generate the kinds of outcome that we expect.
Specifics of the MOU were not immediately available, but both leaders agreed that the signing of the MOU will serve in the interest of the citizens of both countries. Handel Duncan, HGP Nightly News.
The Employers Federation in St. Lucia is calling for the labor unions to calm down. They say the unions have been too eager to take industrial action. However, other groups are refuting this claim. Here's more.
The only thing employers understand and think is resistance.
The St. Lucia Employers Federation has refuted the recently disclosed trade union strategy that resistance brings results. Civil Service Association General Secretary Claude Paul made the assertion after a controversial cabinet conclusion was revoked, temporarily alleviating job security concerns for public servants employed at the Customs and Excise Department. Employers Federation Executive Director Joseph Alexander says the CSA comments were unfortunate.
This is very unfortunate that one of the major unions should be making a point like that, because you realize over the years that there's been industrial peace in the country. Of late, I've realized a posture has been taken now of confrontation.
Executive Director Alexander did agree with the position taken by the Customs and Excise officers. However, he conceded the local industrial climate has been volatile. Executive Director Alexander says the instability in the industrial climate could be linked to the eagerness of trade unions like the CSA, who too quickly resort to industrial action.
When last have we had industrial action, a strike in St. Lucia? We haven't, right? And I don't like, from the Employers Federation perspective, I don't like the posture being adopted by some of the unions in St. Lucia.
How would you describe that posture?
It's a very aggressive posture, and but we must understand that we need to sit together and reconcile our differences. Let's sit together. This is what negotiation is all about. Strike should only be a last resort.
Both the CSA and the Trade Union Federation told Newsforce recently that they have grown leery of the status of employer-employee relations across the public and private sectors. More than 100 Lucelec employees represented by the CSA have the all clear to down their tools. Despite assurances from the Prime Minister, job security remains a concern for hundreds of government-employed nurses and medical staff awaiting the verdict on how the new OKEU hospital will be managed.
A major money laundering investigation has found what could be one of Europe's biggest money laundering scandals. Some 200 billion euros flowed through Danish lender Danske Bank from Russia and ex-Soviet states. Here's more.
200 billion euros flowed through the Estonian branch of Danske Bank. That's according to the latest report by the bank. Chief Executive Thomas Borgen quit following the money laundering investigation, saying it's clear that Danske Bank has failed to live up to its responsibility. The investigation covers 9.5 million payments between 2007 and 2015. Over 6,000 customers have been examined. While Danske says it wasn't able to provide an accurate estimate of the suspicious transactions through its Estonian branch, it says the non-resident portfolio included customers from Russia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine and other ex-Soviet states. Regulators and the financial community will scrutinise the Danske Bank report, which follows calls by Brussels for a new European Union watchdog to crack down on financial crime following a series of major money laundering scandals.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up next. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 57 stocks traded today, of which 28 advanced, 23 declined, and 6 traded firm. The main JC index declined by 5,488 points to close at over 352,000 points. The junior index declined by 22 points to close at 3,436 points. Over 6.7 million units traded today, valued at over $157 million on the Jamaican dollar market, while on the US dollar market, a little over 5,000 units traded, valued at $1,456 US. Derrimont Trading ordinary shares with over 1.1 million units trading accounted for 16% of market volume. NCB Financial Group with a little under a million units trading was second. Lasco Financial Services with over 600 units trading was third, accounting for 9% of the market volume which crossed the floor. The main advances were Main Event Entertainment Group, up 85 cents to close at $6.15. Cargo Handlers up $2.05 to close at $15, and Blue Power Group up 60 cents to close at $7. The main decliners were Derrimont Trading ordinary shares down 27 cents to close at $2.78, followed by Jamaica Producers Group down $2.36 to close at $24.59, and NCB Financial Group Limited down $9.45 to close at $111.96. In foreign exchange trading, the Jamaican dollar gained on all three major trading partners today. The US dollar ended the day trading for an average $136.31, losing 25 cents to the Jamaican dollar. The Canadian dollar ended the day selling for $105.35, losing 44 cents to the Jamaican dollar. And the British pound sold for $179.07, losing $1.61 to the Jamaican dollar. And that's it for the news. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Daryl Vaz, opened the discussions at the G7 Environment Ministers meeting in Canada today. Thanks so much for watching. For more content, please visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Javon Keys. Pleasant viewing.